just to clarify, I don't have a problem with writers correcting typos. I don't have a problem with artists going back and changing the numbering of pages if that's what they were originally trying to do. I don't have a problem with technical mistakes being fixed, with flubs. If it's a genuine screw-up that the artist knows needs to be fixed, then I'm not going to judge them for going back and fixing that. If they mistyped something, or if someone's got the wrong hair color, I wouldn't do it myself, though like I said, I've broken my own rules several times. Well, probably more times than I think. I've been doing this for almost 14 years now. Ugh. Ugh. 14 years. What have I got to show? But anyway, I don't have a problem with fixing leaky pipes. It's when an artist or writer goes back and tries to change the gist of the story, actual story elements. It's when George Lucas had it made so that Greedo, the green guy, shot first. That was wrong. I can't abide that. I mean, for crying out loud, the guy was sitting right across the table from Han Solo. How could he possibly have missed? I mean, it was sheer luck that he aimed for the head then, wasn't it? If he had aimed for Han Solo's body, he couldn't just, ooh, you can't do that faster than a laser blast. Han Solo would have been dead. It made so much sense for Han to shoot first. Anyway, I'd like to use this as an opportunity to pay homage to a profession which is not only often overlooked, but I think somewhat vilified. And sometimes that's justified. Sometimes these people really do get in the way and screw things up. But no more so, I think, than any other tier within the various schools which go into the making of various works of art or literature or fantasy. I'm talking about the editors. I used to have a big problem with editors. I used to think, oh man, those editors, they screw things up, don't they? I've grown up a bit since then. Let me tell you my philosophy of bad movies. I think there are basically two types of bad movies. Movies that have too little and movies that have too much. Either a movie has too little of something, say talent or content or plot or relevance or just any number of things, then it's kind of unsalvageable. But some movies are just bad because they've got too much of something. A perfect example of this, in my opinion, is the recent Indiana Jones film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Remember that? No one's going to fight you too much if you say that that movie was really kind of dumb. But why was it dumb? Because it had all these scenes that were dumb. But let's think about this. You could cut out all of the dumbest scenes. You could remove Indiana Jones surviving a nuclear explosion in a refrigerator. You could cut out the Russians doing their little dance. You could cut out swinging through the jungle with the monkeys. You could cut out Indiana Jones in the quicksand with the snake, that scene too. If you just cut out each of these scenes, you would gain something. None of those scenes really added much to the story, did they? That movie needed more than anything a good editor. If that movie had just had a good editor, someone willing to maybe stand up to Lucas if that was what it took to cut the fat, it would have been not a great movie, but a much better movie, a passable movie anyway. If it had just had someone willing to look at what wasn't needed and get rid of it. As I understand it, that was largely the problem with the prequel films, the Star Wars prequels, Episode 1, Episode 2, and so forth. Admittedly, by Episode 3, Lucas was beginning to get back in his stride. If the prequels had gone on for, say, 6 movies instead of 3, by the end he probably would have been doing all right. But the first movie, when they were getting back into it, by then, and this is just what I've heard, Lucas had such star power that no one was willing to stand up to him and tell him no. And Lucas has kind of an overly kid-friendly streak. He tends to put these cliche, family-oriented, goo-goo, happy times, zany, fancy, frolic, funny, free scenes into his films, like the monkeys and the Ewoks. The Ewoks. The Ewoks. The Ewoks. And little Anakin Skywalker, little Annie Skywalker. There just weren't enough people working on that first movie, on episode 1, who were willing to stand up to him and tell him what was working and what wasn't. So he got to put everything into him. Now, and I think that this has kind of tainted his reputation as a director, because I think a lot of directors go this way. Many directors probably would not have the reputations they have if it weren't for the talent of the people around them, and that includes, in many cases, very capable editors. When an editor is doing his or her job, we get the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Everybody loves the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and if you didn't, then shut up. Just please, I didn't mean you. I wasn't talking about you specifically. Okay, I can say that everybody likes something without meaning literally that everybody likes something. If you didn't like it, you don't need to comment about how you didn't like that thing that I said that everybody liked. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. My point is, that was a hugely successful film series, and if you didn't like it, that's okay. I don't blame you. I'm sorry I told you to shut up. I tend to snap sometimes when I'm on a roll. But what I'm saying is, those movies owe a lot, not only to the director, Peter Jackson, but to the editors. And I'm sure there was like a team of them working on that movie to make the films what they were. How do I know this? Because I've seen the director's cuts. Most of ones. The extended versions. And let me tell you, I don't want to take anything away from Peter Jackson, but some of those scenes were just effing ridiculous. Pippin and Merry getting eaten by a tree, some slapstick garbage about, oh, you're getting taller than me, oh, I'm drinking. No. There were scenes in those movies, and I'd like to make it clear, there were also scenes which I thought could have added to the films. Saruman getting trapped in the tower. I thought that the movies could have used that. I'm not going to agree with every choice that the editors made, but by and large, I think most of the scenes that they excised from the movie they knew what they were doing. They're professionals, and they looked at this scene or that scene, said this wasn't needed, this is too goofy, it would spoil the tone, and I think the success of the Lord of the Rings films is due not just to Peter Jackson's skill as a director, and surely he is skilled, but to the talents of all the people around him who were working to make those movies what they were. And that includes the editors. So I just like to make sure that editors as a profession are appreciated, because I think in general they give a lot more to the projects they work on than people realize. I mean, we see movies like Lord of the Rings. We think, oh, Peter Jackson's this great godlike director. Well, he's not perfect either. I don't think any director is. But a good director has the know-how to pick his editors, or to go along with what the editors say. And so that's to his credit too. I mean, he must have had veto power at some point. The editors must have shown him the scenes that they wanted to cut. He must have gone along with it, and that's a credit to him. And nowadays, directors can content themselves with leaving their extended scenes for later DVD releases, the director's cuts, and that's what we get. And certainly there are situations where the editors are the ones who screw up. I've heard, I haven't seen it with my eyes, but I've heard that the director's cut of, say, Daredevil with Ben Affleck, I've heard that is actually a far superior film to the mediocre film that was in the theaters. So, it's give and take. But for any good movie, I think credit has to be paid to the editors, and perhaps any good story, any good book published. I know I've done commissions. I've written things, well, mostly drawn things, where I was given advice, which I didn't always take to right away, but which I later learned to appreciate for what it was, by my clients who gave me advice and said that this should be this way or this should be that way. Going through college, my professors would give me advice, and I was always glad to get it, because I knew to respect outside opinions. And I keep waiting for someone out there to play editor with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, to just take a version of that movie and cut out some of those scenes, and you could do it so easily. Indiana Jones escapes from Area 51, cut to him being recovered by the military. Easy. I want someone to make Kingdom of the Crystal Skull the movie it should have been, just by cutting out a few scenes. That scene where he's in the quicksand, they're trying to throw him the snake, just cut it out. You wouldn't lose a thing.